Captain Jane Marlow stared through the viewport of the International Space Station's newly installed diplomatic module, watching the enormous alien vessel that had parked itself in Earth's orbit 3 days ago. The ship, if you could call a structure larger than Manhattan a ship, pulsed with blue-green lights that definitely weren't standard NASA-approved illumination. Still nothing, she asked, not turning away from the view. Lieutenant Garcia tapped at his console. Same message on repeat, Captain. Prepare for diplomatic contact. Universal Federation representatives will board your station at designated Earth time 1400 hours. Jane checked her watch. 20 minutes to go. Just enough time for another existential crisis. 3 days ago, humanity had collectively lost its mind when the massive ship appeared without warning. No radar detection, no gradual approach, just suddenly there, as if someone had copy-pasted a giant alien vessel into Earth's orbit. The resulting chaos had been predictable. Stock markets crashed, religious leaders proclaimed everything from salvation to damnation, and social media exploded with alien memes faster than government agencies could say remain calm. Captain Garcia's voice pulled her back to reality. General Williams is calling again. Jane sighed. Put him through. The screen flickered to life, showing the red-faced general of the United Nations Joint Defense Force. Captain Marlow, any updates on what these visitors want? No, sir. But we're about to find out. Their representatives are boarding in 19 minutes. Remember your orders. Diplomatic but firm. Earth won't bow to any threats. Jane resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Yes, sir. I'm aware that my 15 years in interplanetary diplomatic training was all for this moment. The general didn't catch her sarcasm. Good. Williams out. As the screen went dark, Jane turned to her small team. Besides Garcia, there was Dr. Nina Patel, xenobiologist Commander Rick Thomas, security and Professor Max Goldstein, linguistics expert who had somehow decoded the aliens' initial transmission in under 6 hours. Okay, people. Whatever happens, remember we represent all of humanity today. No pressure, muttered Thomas, checking his sidearm for the 15th time. At exactly 1400 hours, the airlock hissed. Everyone tensed as the door slid open, revealing 3 figures that certainly weren't human. The aliens stood about 7 feet tall with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. They had 4 arms, no visible nose, and large compound eyes that reflected the room in disturbing fractal patterns. Their mouths were vertical slits that opened sideways when the middle one spoke. Greetings, Earth representatives. We are the Universal Federation Council. The words came out in perfect English, though the mouth movements didn't match at all. I am High Commander Zrel. Jane stepped forward. Welcome aboard. I'm Captain Jane Marlow, Earth Diplomatic Corps. Your species is unknown to us, Zrel continued, head tilting at an uncomfortable angle. We have come to evaluate your worthiness for Federation membership or alternative designation. Alternative designation, Jane asked, already not liking where this was going. Resource world, experimental zone, or preservation habitat. Depends on your capabilities. Professor Goldstein cleared his throat nervously. We assure you, Earth has much to offer as a Federation member. The alien to Zrel's right made a sound like water going down a drain, apparently laughter. All species claim this. Therefore, we issue the universal challenge to determine your status. Jane kept her diplomatic smile plastered on. And what is this challenge? Zrel's skin flashed bright orange. Simple. Your planet will select champions. We select champions. We fight like animals. The room went completely silent. Fight. Like animals, Jane repeated. Yes, natural combat. No weapons, no technology. Pure biological capability. Federation tradition for 10,000 cycles. Jane glanced at her team, seeing her own confusion reflected in their faces. And if we win? Federation membership. If you lose, Zrel's skin darkened to a deep purple. Alternative designation. We need time to prepare, Jane said quickly. Of course. Federation is reasonable. You have 1 Earth week, all 3 aliens bowed simultaneously. Choose wisely. Most species fail. After the aliens departed, Jane's team erupted. Fight like animals? What does that even mean? Thomas exclaimed. Are they expecting us to bite and scratch? Dr. Patel wondered. Jane tapped her comlink. General Williams, we have a situation. The aliens want us to fight like animals. As the week progressed, every government, military think tank, and scientist on Earth debated what exactly the aliens meant. Some argued for selecting NMF fighters, others for military special forces. A particularly enthusiastic group from Australia suggested just finding the meanest cassowary we can and letting it loose on them. Through it all, Jane couldn't shake the feeling they were all missing something important about this strange challenge. You want me to do what Captain Jane Marlow stared at the United Nations Security Council on her view screen, certain she had misheard. Select our best fighters, repeated General Williams. We're sending up Olympic wrestlers, MMA champions, and special forces operators. Your job is to coordinate with the alien liaison and set up the matches. Jane pinched the bridge of her nose. Sir, with all due respect, I don't think that's what they meant by fight like animals. Well, what do you suggest, Captain? That we send actual animals? A tiger versus whatever squid beast they put forward. Before Jane could respond, her communication officer announced, Captain, the alien representative is requesting permission to board. 5 minutes later, Jane was shaking hands, or rather, allowing her hand to be grasped by a tentacle with Chris, the newly appointed Federation liaison officer. I am pleased to facilitate this traditional exchange. Chris's skin rippled with yellow patterns that Professor Goldstein had identified as indicating excitement. Many species find the natural combat challenge quite illuminating. About that, Jane said. We're still trying to understand exactly what you mean by fight like animals. Chris's head tilted at that disturbing angle again. Is it not obvious? You display your evolutionary combat adaptations, your natural weapons and defenses. Natural weapons, Jane repeated. Yes. Claws, teeth, venom, electricity generation, sonic attacks, whatever biological weapons your species evolved. There was an awkward silence. I see, Jane said slowly. Would you excuse me for a moment? I need to consult with our experts. 20 minutes later, Jane had assembled an emergency video conference with Earth's hastily formed Alien Challenge Task Force, including Dr. Marcus Wells, the world's leading evolutionary biologist who had been analyzing the limited footage of the alien visitors. They're expecting us to fight with natural biological weapons, Jane explained. Like animals. Dr. Wells, a lanky man with perpetually disheveled hair, laughed. That's the problem, Captain. Humans don't really have any. We lost our claws millions of years ago. Our teeth are pathetic compared to actual predators. We can't spit venom or generate electricity. So we're doomed, asked someone from the Pentagon. Not necessarily, Dr. Wells continued. This is fascinating, actually. These aliens must come from evolutionary paths where intelligence developed alongside natural weapons. They probably still have their equivalent of claws and fangs, even with their advanced technology. Jane remembered the retractable talons she'd glimpsed when Chris gestured. So they literally want us to fight like animals, with biological weapons we don't have. Precisely, Dr. Wells nodded. They don't understand that humans took a different evolutionary path. We sacrificed natural weapons for these. He wiggled his fingers with their dexterous, nail-tipped digits. General Williams looked grim. So what do we do? We can't grow claws in a week. Jane thought about the aliens' vertical slit mouths and compound eyes. Dr. Wells, how exactly did humans hunt before we had tools? That's the thing, Captain. Early humans rarely used direct physical confrontation. We used our minds. Persistence hunting, traps, coordinated group tactics. Jane felt the first glimmer of an idea. So we didn't overpower our prey with superior natural weapons. We outsmarted them. Exactly, Dr. Wells smiled. It's what made us the apex predator on Earth. Then maybe, Jane said slowly, we need to show the aliens how humans really fight like animals. Dr. Marcus Wells paced the length of the hastily assembled research lab aboard the International Space Station. Holographic projections of various alien species filled the air around him, all Federation members that Earth's intelligence agencies had managed to record during the initial contact. It's the same pattern in every single one, he muttered, gesturing for Jane to look closer at a particularly nightmarish creature with mandibles the size of steak knives. Every Federation species we've observed retains significant natural weaponry despite their technological advancement. Jane studied the projections. So the mantis-looking ones kept their slicey bits. The jellyfish aliens still have tentacles and toxins. Exactly. And look at this. Dr. Wells pulled up footage of High Commander Zrel in a diplomatic meeting. He zoomed in and slowed the video, showing the moment when Zrel reached for a glass of water. Almost imperceptible ridges along the alien's forearm momentarily lifted, revealing razor-sharp protrusions beneath. Those are bone spurs, Captain. Concealed natural weapons. I've detected similar adaptations in every Federation representative. Lieutenant Garcia whistled. They're walking Swiss Army knives. More importantly, Dr. Wells continued, they've maintained these natural weapons throughout their evolution. It suggests a fundamentally different evolutionary pathway than Earth's. Jane frowned. So for them, intelligence evolved without sacrificing natural weaponry. Precisely. While Earth's evolutionary path sacrificed physical weapons for brain power, these species kept both. Their definition of fighting like animals assumes everybody has built-in biological weapons. Professor Goldstein entered the lab, looking even more disheveled than usual. Captain, I've been analyzing translation data. There's something critical we missed. The Federation doesn't just expect natural weapons, they believe technological advancement is only possible with them. What Jane and Dr. Wells said simultaneously. Their cultural paradigm assumes that manipulation of tools requires natural weapons, first claws, pincers, whatever. In their worldview, a species without natural weapons couldn't possibly have developed technology. That's completely backward from our perspective, Dr. Wells said, excitement building in his voice. Humans developed tools precisely because we lacked natural weapons. Jane paced the room, mind racing. So they're expecting us to showcase natural weapons we don't have, and they can't conceive that we built civilization without them. That's why they're so confident, Garcia realized. They think we're bluffing about our technology. They'd probably believe we bought or stole it from some other species. Jane stopped pacing. Dr. Wells, tell me more about how early humans hunted. Well, we were persistence predators. Not the strongest or fastest, but we could track prey for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. We used teamwork, planning, endurance. And our brains, Jane added. Pattern recognition, anticipating prey movements, communicating complex strategies. Yes, while other predators relied on ambush or pure physical dominance, we used problem-solving and cooperation. Jane's eyes lit up. That's it. If they want us to fight like animals, we'll show them how humans hunt. Our natural weapon isn't claws or venom, it's this. She tapped her temple. You want us to outsmart super-advanced aliens in physical combat? Garcia looked skeptical. Exactly, Jane grinned. They're expecting a straightforward physical contest. We'll give them something completely different. Over the next 3 days, the station became a hive of activity. Dr. Wells coordinated with Earth's leading experts in evolutionary biology, animal behavior, and human performance. Professor Goldstein worked around the clock analyzing Federation communication patterns for tactical insights. Engineers rapidly prototyped training systems, while behaviorists developed psychological profiles of each alien species observed. Combat specialists from various Earth militaries arrived on shuttle after shuttle, not to showcase brute strength, but to learn an entirely new combat doctrine. Meanwhile, Jane met daily with Chris, carefully extracting information while revealing nothing of Earth's actual preparation. Your combat representatives seem underwhelming, Chris commented after observing a deliberately mediocre training session. The alien's skin flickered with patterns that Goldstein had identified as indicating confusion mixed with smug superiority. Appearances can be deceiving, Jane replied non-committally. Indeed. Many species attempt to conceal their natural capabilities before the challenge. It never helps. Jane just smiled. We're looking forward to demonstrating how humans fight. Later that evening, Jane found Dr. Wells in the observation lounge, staring at Earth below. Are we really going to pull this off? She asked. Wells turned to her with a tired but determined expression. Captain, do you know what makes humans the most successful predators in Earth's history? It's not just our intelligence, it's our adaptability. We don't just use our existing tools, we invent new ones for each challenge. And now we need to become the tool, Jane realized. Exactly. The Federation expects animals fighting with natural weapons. We're going to show them what happens when humans decide to truly fight like animals. Again, Jane ordered as she watched the training session from the observation deck. Below, 3 Special Forces operators moved in perfect synchronization around a holographically projected alien combatant. They didn't attack head-on but maintained constant movement, taking turns engaging and retreating, seemingly never tiring while their simulated opponent's movements grew increasingly erratic. Dr. Wells stood beside her, tablet in hand. Wolfpack Tactics, Iteration 17. Much better coordination than yesterday. Time to completion, Jane asked. 14 minutes to simulated exhaustion. Still not fast enough. Jane nodded. Let's try the next model. The simulation reset, and the operators shifted to a completely different formation. This time they moved in quick, darting motions, too distracting from the front, while the third circled to attack from behind. Dragonfly Mantis approached. Dr. Wells explained to a thoroughly confused Chris, who had been observing Earth's preparations with increasing bewilderment, inspired by some of Earth's most efficient insect predators. But where are their weapons? Chris's skin rippled with patterns of deep confusion. They merely move around. Jane smiled pleasantly. Just warming up. The challenge is tomorrow, Chris reminded her. If your species has concealed natural weaponry, now would be the time to practice with it. We're counting on surprise, Jane replied cryptically. After Chris departed, the real training resumed. The next simulation ended in disaster as one operator tripped over another, sending all 3 tumbling to the floor. This isn't working, Lieutenant Garcia groaned as the hologram froze, showing their simulated alien opponents standing triumphantly over their tangled bodies. Jane descended to the training floor. We're overthinking it. Dr. Wells, what's humanity's most successful hunting strategy throughout our evolutionary history? Persistence hunting. But that takes hours or even days. We don't have that kind of time in the arena. What about our most successful modern predator model? Dr. Wells' eyes lit up. Actually, that's not a lion or tiger, it's social hunters like orcas, with their combination of intelligence, communication, and coordinated attacks. And what do they do that makes them so effective? They exhaust their prey through constant harassment, target identification, and role specialization. Dr. Wells stopped, suddenly understanding. They don't mimic different animal hunting styles. They perfect their own. Jane turned to the operators. Forget all the animal models we've been trying to copy. What makes humans the apex predator isn't our ability to imitate other animals, it's our ability to adapt, communicate, and exploit weakness. The lead operator, Commander Reyes, nodded slowly. You want us to fight like humans hunting animals, not like animals fighting each other. Exactly. The next simulation was a revelation. Instead of mimicking specific animal tactics, the team used pure human predatory techniques: pattern recognition, psychological pressure, and coordinated teamwork. They systematically identified weaknesses in their opponent's defense and exploited them with ruthless efficiency. Time to completion 6 minutes. By the final day of preparation, Earth's team had integrated elements from dozens of human hunting cultures, from indigenous Australian tracking techniques to Inuit hunting strategies to modern military small unit tactics. When Chris came for the final inspection, the alien found Jane alone in the observation room. Your champions are not practicing, Chris asked, compound eyes reflecting Jane's face in disturbing fractal patterns. They're ready, Jane replied confidently. Without natural weapons, you cannot hope to succeed. Chris's skin flickered with what Professor Goldstein had identified as the pattern for pity. But your species' confidence is admirable. Jane just smiled. We're looking forward to showing the Federation exactly how humans fight like animals. The Federation Challenge Arena looked like someone had crossed an Olympic stadium with a gladiatorial coliseum, and then let a particularly ambitious squid decorate it. Translucent barriers surrounded a circular field roughly 50 meters across, with terrace seating filled with hundreds of alien spectators representing at least 30 different species. Jane stood at the entrance tunnel with Earth's team Commander Reyes, Lieutenant Chen, and Sergeant Okafor, 3 of humanity's most adaptable Special Forces operators. Remember the plan, Jane said, checking their minimal protective gear one last time. They're expecting traditional combat. They'll be completely unprepared for our approach. Over the past week, Federation ships had delivered representatives from every spacefaring civilization to witness the challenge. The stakes couldn't be higher. Earth's status as either a Federation member or resource world would be decided today. High Commander Zrel's voice boomed across the arena. Welcome to the Natural Combat Challenge, a tradition spanning 10,000 cycles. Today, we evaluate the species designating themselves humans through honorable physical contest. Jane led her team into the arena to polite, chittering applause from the alien audience. Across the field entered 3 Federation champions, a mantis-like being with razor forelimbs, a massive reptilian creature with armored plates, and a sinuous, tentacled entity that seemed to flow rather than walk. As tradition dictates, Zrel continued, combatants will demonstrate their natural biological weapons before engagement. The Federation champions stepped forward one by one. The mantis being's forelimbs flashed with blinding speed, slicing the air with audible whooshes. The reptilian fighter extruded bony spikes from every joint while releasing a terrifying roar. The tentacled entity performed an elaborate display, skin rippling with electric pulses that made the air crackle. Then all eyes turned to the humans. Your demonstration, Chris prompted from the sidelines, skin patterns showing anticipation finally turning to concern. Jane nodded to her team. They simply stood in a triangle formation and started talking quietly among themselves while pointing at their opponents. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience. This is irregular, Zrel announced, compound eyes reflecting a kaleidoscope of apparent confusion. Humans, you must demonstrate your natural weapons. Jane addressed the arena. We are. Humans' natural weapons aren't physical, they're cognitive. We're analyzing weaknesses, developing strategy, and communicating complex tactics. This is how humans hunt as animals. Outraged chittering erupted from the stands. Unacceptable, protested the representative of the mantis species. They admit they have no natural weapons. On the contrary, Jane replied calmly. We're demonstrating the most dangerous natural weapons on our planet, human brains working in coordination. Before Zrel could respond, Jane signaled her team. Begin. What followed stunned the alien audience into silence. Rather than engaging in direct combat, the humans implemented pure persistence predator tactics. They separated, constantly moving, never presenting a stationary target. They maintained relentless pressure, taking turns harassing each opponent without ever fully committing. When the mantis fighter lunged at Chen, she was already elsewhere. When the reptilian opponent charged Okafor, he pivoted away while Reyes distracted it from behind. The tentacled entity found itself unable to focus on any single human, its electrical discharges hitting empty air. Minutes passed. The Federation champions grew increasingly frantic, expending enormous energy in explosive bursts while the humans maintained their measured pace. The humans weren't attacking, they were hunting. What is this? Chris demanded, skin flashing patterns of outrage. They are not fighting. No, Dr. Wells replied from the observation booth, unable to contain his pride. They're fighting exactly like the animals they evolved from apex predators who conquered our planet not with claws or venom, but with endurance, cooperation, and intelligence. On the arena floor, the Federation champions were beginning to slow. Phase 1 of Earth's strategy was working perfectly. 20 minutes into the challenge, the Federation champions were showing clear signs of fatigue. The mantis being's strikes had lost their lightning precision. The reptilian fighter's movements became sluggish, its armored plates drooping slightly. Even the flowing tentacled entity had slowed, its electrical discharges growing weaker with each attempt. The humans, meanwhile, maintained their relentless pace. They hadn't landed a single direct blow, yet they were undeniably winning. This is unprecedented, Zrel muttered to Chris, whose skin had settled into a disturbed pattern of blue-gray confusion. They're using pure endurance as a weapon. Phase 2, Jane called out to her team. The human strategy shifted. Having exhausted their opponents, they began targeting specific vulnerabilities they'd identified during their harassment phase. Chen darted in to exploit the mantis being's limited rear visibility. Okafor used precise movements to force the reptilian fighter into overextending its armored limbs. Reyes systematically disrupted the tentacled entity's coordination with quick, tactical engagements. The alien audience had fallen completely silent, watching with collective dismay as Earth's champions systematically dismantled fighters who, by all conventional metrics, should have been vastly superior. Impossible, someone whispered loudly enough to be heard throughout the arena. The end came swiftly. The mantis being, attempting a desperate lunge at Chen, overextended and crashed to the ground. The reptilian fighter, disoriented by Okafor's constant repositioning, collapsed from exhaustion. Only the tentacled entity remained, but surrounded by all three humans now working in perfect coordination, it signaled surrender by changing to a pale white color. Jane stepped forward. The challenge is complete. For several long moments, the arena remained utterly silent. Then High Commander Zrel stood. In 10,000 cycles of natural combat challenges, we have never witnessed this. Method of combat. Zrel's compound eyes reflected fractured images of the human team. You have no natural weapons, yet you have prevailed. How is this possible? Jane smiled. You asked us to fight like animals. We did. Humans are persistence predators. On our world, we didn't evolve to kill with a single strike. We evolved to think, plan, communicate, and outlast our prey. That's how we became Earth's apex predator, despite lacking claws, venom, or superior strength. Dr. Wells added from the observation booth, your evolutionary path kept natural weapons alongside intelligence. Ours traded physical weapons for enhanced cognition, tool use, and social coordination. Different paths, different fighting styles. A slow ripple of understanding moved through the alien audience. So your technology is truly of your own making, Chris realized, skin patterns shifting to something Professor Goldstein identified as grudging respect. Not stolen or purchased. Exactly, Jane confirmed. We didn't need natural weapons to build civilization. We used our minds to create artificial ones. Zrel's skin flickered through a complex series of patterns before settling on a deep purple tinged with gold, a color they'd never displayed before. The Federation acknowledges humanity's victory through unconventional but effective natural combat. As promised, Earth will be granted full membership status. Cheers erupted from the human observation booth, where the entire diplomatic team had been watching with bated breath. However, Zrel continued once the celebration quieted, given your unique evolutionary path, we believe a special designation is warranted. Jane tensed. Special designation? Yes. In Federation classification, species are categorized by their evolutionary adaptations. Yours appears to be unique among all known spacefaring civilizations. Zrel's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. We propose categorizing humans as cognitive apex predators of the only known species to evolve high intelligence as its primary hunting adaptation. We accept this designation with pride, Jane replied, unable to suppress a grin. The formal integration of Earth into the Universal Federation took place 3 days later. As Jane signed the official documents, Chris approached her with what Professor Goldstein had deemed was the alien equivalent of embarrassment. Captain Marlow, I must acknowledge a misconception. We believed that without natural biological weapons, a species could not possibly advance to spacefaring status. Your people have expanded our understanding of evolutionary potential. Happy to broaden your horizons, Jane replied with a wink. 6 months later, Jane stood at the podium of the United Nations, delivering her report on humanity's new place in the galactic community. The good news is, we're in. The better news is, we've already started influencing Federation policy. Apparently our think first, claw later approach is considered quite innovative. She paused, allowing herself a smirk before continuing. The irony isn't lost on me. For all their technological advancement, the Federation never grasped that intelligence itself could be an evolutionary weapon. They asked us to fight like animals, expecting tooth and claw. Instead, we showed them what makes humans the most dangerous animals on Earth: our ability to outthink, outplan, and outlast any opponent. Jane looked out at the assembled world leaders, her expression turning philosophical. For millennia, we've defined ourselves by our technology, our art, our capacity for compassion. But when pushed to the edge, we succeeded by embracing our most primal nature. We hunted them down like the clever, persistent animals we've always been. The universe now knows what we've known all along. Humanity doesn't need claws or venom to be dangerous. We just need to be human. She grinned. And apparently that scares the hell out of them. Good.